The loudest voice in the room is never the one screaming. It's the one that says nothing and still shakes the ground. What if I told you, your silence doesn't just confuse them, it terrifies them? Sounds crazy, right? But stay with me, because we're about to peel back the layers on something powerful, something raw, something most people never tell you. Before we dive in, press that like button, subscribe, and make sure you turn on notifications. If you've ever felt like your silence is misunderstood, misjudged, or underestimated, this one's for you. Now, hey folks, picture this. Imagine a massive lion sitting calmly in the grass, not roaring, not chasing, just watching, still, calm. But everyone around knows that silence isn't weakness, it's warning. That's you. You're not loud, you're not throwing emotional punches, but your silence, it roars. See, people expect noise, they expect a show, they want drama, they want you crying, texting paragraphs, begging for closure, throwing one last emotional Hail Mary. But when you don't, when your energy just vanishes without explanation, it hits different. It's like slamming a door, but doing it with a smile and walking away in slow motion while the building collapses behind you. You think you're protecting your peace. You think you're just stepping back, but in their mind, you're rejecting them, not with words, but with indifference. And let me tell you something, my friends. Indifference is the scariest kind of power. They're out here thinking, why aren't they reacting? Did they even care? Am I being forgotten? That's the beauty of Stoic silence. It doesn't chase, it doesn't justify, it doesn't perform. And when someone can't figure you out, they obsess over you. I'm not talking about playing games here. This ain't manipulation. This is you stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't beg for peace. You become peace. You don't demand closure. You are the closure. You don't seek validation. You're too busy validating yourself. Folks, we've been lied to. We were told if you don't explain yourself, you're cold. If you don't reply, you're rude. If you don't chase, you're heartless. Nah, let me flip the script. If you need to chase someone for your worth, they were never worth the chase in the first place. You want to know what silence really is? It's freedom in its rawest form. It's pressing mute on chaos. It's walking off the battlefield because you already won. And some people will never understand that because they need noise to feel alive. But you're building peace in silence and strength in solitude. Remember this quote and let it tattoo itself into your mindset. Silence is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of power. So if someone's confused by your quiet, let them be. If they think you've gone cold, let them feel the chill. Because your silence isn't rejection, it's redirection. You're not avoiding them, you're choosing you. Now, write this in the comments and let the world know. My silence speaks louder than their expectations. Say it again if you have to. Let it sink in. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. This is just the beginning. Stay with me, my friends. We're building something unshakable, unbothered, unavailable, untouchable. Number 1. The myth of closure. Why silence cuts deeper than words. Closure is just a stage, built for those who still want an audience. Let's talk about something that's been sold to us like a medicine, but it's really just sugar-coated fear. Closure. They say it brings peace, that you can't move on without it, that it's necessary to heal. But let me hit you with something real, my friends. Closure is a myth, a polite way of saying, I still want a little more of your energy before you leave. It's not about answers, it's about access to your thoughts, your emotions, your presence. Closure is just a leash made out of questions. Why? What happened? Can we talk one last time? But deep down, it's not about clarity, it's about control. Imagine this. You're on stage after the final act, lights dimmed, curtain down. The play is over, but someone from the audience stands up and shouts, "Wait, can we go over the ending again?" That's closure. It's someone who saw the story unfold, felt the shift, watched you walk off, but still wants to drag you back into the spotlight for one more scene. And here's the twist. They don't want your truth. They want comfort. They want reassurance. They want to feel like they weren't the villain in your story or the fool who lost something valuable. That's not healing. That's ego repair. You might be asking, but isn't it kind to give closure? Isn't it mature? Shouldn't I at least say something? And I get it. That fear is real. You feel cold, maybe even guilty, like you're abandoning someone emotionally. But let me tell you this, you're not responsible for someone else's peace when they destroyed yours. We've been raised on the idea that silence is cruel, that not responding is heartless, that disappearing is immature. But that's the biggest lie they've sold us. Because silence isn't cruelty, it's conclusion. It's you saying, this story doesn't need another chapter. I'm closing the book. And guess what? Some people don't want closure. They want a doorway back in. They'll say things like, I just want to understand. What they mean is, I want you to feel bad enough to let me back in. They'll say, we owe it to each other to talk. What they mean is, I didn't expect you to have this kind of strength. You owe nothing to people who once ignored your value. You don't have to give explanations to those who gave you confusion. You don't need to pour water into a cup that never held anything for you in return. Your silence isn't avoidance, it's elevation. It's going to feel unnatural at first. Your heart will itch to speak, to text, to send just one more message. That's the part of you that's still used to performing for peace. But you've got to learn how to sit with that discomfort and recognize it for what it is, a dying habit. You don't need to break your silence for someone who broke your spirit. Here's the truth that hits the hardest. They wanted a soft landing after they dropped you. They wanted you to hold the parachute while they walked away. And now they're circling back, not to make amends, but to soften the story they tell themselves. Your silence? That's not the absence of love. That's the presence of dignity. They wanted the last word. You gave them something better, a lasting memory of your strength. It's hard, I won't lie to you. Choosing silence over closure feels like walking out of a burning house while someone you once loved is yelling from inside. But here's the kicker, they lit the fire, and staying to explain your exit only keeps you in the smoke. You've got to choose clarity over comfort, not just for them, but for yourself. Because every time you open that door to just talk, you reopen the wound you've been trying to heal. Every one last conversation becomes another emotional rerun of a show you've already outgrown. Think about this. Has closure ever given you what you truly needed? Or did it just give them a chance to justify, spin the story, or keep you emotionally stuck? See, When you say nothing, they're left with their own echo. They're left wondering. And that discomfort, that's not on you to fix. That's growth knocking at their door. Your silence is the plot twist they never prepared for. They expected you to explain your hurt, cry your pain, maybe even plead a little. Instead, you gave them nothing but stillness. And stillness, my friends, is terrifying to people who thrive in chaos. They expected drama. You gave them peace. They expected a chase. You gave them distance. They expected closure. You gave them a closed door. That's not cruelty. That's control. Your job isn't to rewrite the ending so they feel better about the part they played. Your job is to rise, to let the silence speak louder than any apology ever could, to leave them with a lesson, not a lullaby. They'll think about you, not because you said something brilliant, but because you said nothing at all. So, if you're feeling the pull to break the silence just to be fair, let me stop you right here. Fairness isn't giving people more access to a heart they already mishandled. Fairness is giving yourself the peace you've been trying to give everyone else. This is where your power begins. Not in the final words, but in the final walk away. Not in loud exits, but in quiet evolution. So say it with me in the comments. Let the world see it. Let yourself feel it. I don't need closure. I am the closure. Drop it below. Let that be your line in the sand. Show yourself. Show the people around you. And most importantly, show the version of you who still thinks you need to explain your worth, that you've already outgrown that lie. We're just getting warmed up. The next truth, it hits even harder. Stay with me. Number 2, Stoicism isn't suppression, it's precision. Control your emotions, or they will control you. That's not cold, it's calculated. Let's break another lie today, my friends. One that's been thrown around like it's truth, when really it's just a misunderstanding passed down from the emotionally undisciplined. The lie? That being stoic means being numb. That silence equals emptiness. That if you're not reacting, you must not care. Wrong. Dead wrong. Stoicism isn't about shutting off your emotions. It's not about becoming a robot with no feelings. That's not strength. That's emotional avoidance. What real Stoicism gives you is something far more powerful: precision. The power to choose when, how, and even if you respond at all. Imagine a warrior with a sword. That sword is sharp, deadly, and capable of destruction. But does the warrior swing it at every provocation? No, because he's trained, he's disciplined, he's precise. That's you, with your emotions. That's Stoicism. You have the fire, but you don't let it burn everything down. You're not quiet because you're broken. You're quiet because you choose silence over spectacle. You're not ignoring them because you don't feel. You're ignoring them because you finally realized your energy is expensive, and not everyone can afford it. You see, emotional discipline is often mistaken for emotional absence. People will say, "You've changed. You don't care like you used to." What they really mean is, "I can't manipulate you like I used to." That's not detachment. That's evolution. You're not here to react to every message, every mood swing, every guilt trip, every emotional bait. That's what they expect. That's the game. And when you stop playing it, they call you cold. Let them. Because what they're really feeling isn't your coldness, It's your boundaries. Let's get this straight. Stoicism isn't a shutdown. It's a level up. It's understanding that emotions are tools, not rulers, that you don't have to be explosive to be powerful, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not respond. Why is that so hard? Because we were raised to believe that silence means weakness, that reacting means you care, that blowing up or breaking down is proof of love, pain, or passion. But guess what? Reacting to everything doesn't make you deep. It makes you easy to control. Every time you respond without thinking, you give away a piece of your power. Every time you explain yourself to someone who already decided to misunderstand you, you lose a little more of your peace. And every time you explode just to be heard, you shrink yourself down to their level. Stoicism teaches you to do the opposite, to rise, to detach, to observe, to become so deeply rooted in your self-worth that someone else's chaos doesn't even make you blink. You'll be tempted to prove your point. You'll want to scream your side of the story. You'll want to show them that you're hurting too. But trust me, the most powerful response is no response at all. Because silence, when used with purpose, is a language louder than any words you could ever say. It's hard, I know. You'll feel like you're holding in a tidal wave. But guess what? That pressure you feel, that's growth, that's restraint, that's you taking back control of your own narrative. That's you refusing to bleed for people who never offered you a bandage. And you're going to notice something. The more stoic you become, the more unpredictable you become. And the more unpredictable you become, the more power you gain. Because people can't control what they can't read. You become unreadable, mysterious, a calm in the storm they can't shake. They'll wonder, why isn't he reacting? Why doesn't she respond the way she used to? And that, right there, that's the moment they realize you've evolved. You've stepped off the battlefield. You're no longer swinging at ghosts. You've stopped fighting for a place in someone else's chaos, and instead, you've chosen peace as your battlefield. That's real power. Let them misunderstand you. Let them think you don't care. Let them create their own version of events. Because you're not in the business of convincing anymore. You're in the business of protecting your energy. So write it in the comments. Say it loud. Say it proud. My silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. Let the world know. Let the old you know. And let everyone who underestimated your quiet energy feel what real emotional strength looks like. And stay close, because next up, we're diving into something even deeper, how your silence becomes the mirror they can't look away from. It only gets more powerful from here. Number 3, the psychology of silence, rejection without saying a word. Sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you never say out loud. Let's get into something raw today, something that most people feel but can't quite explain. Rejection. But not the kind that comes with a breakup text, or a blocked number, or even a slammed door. I'm talking about the kind that cuts the deepest. Here's the truth. Humans fear rejection more than they fear failure. You fail, you can try again. You lose, you can train, rebuild, bounce back. But rejection, that cuts the identity. It whispers, you weren't enough. It plants seeds of doubt that don't just vanish overnight. And when that rejection is silent, calm, unbothered, emotionless. It hits harder than anything you could ever scream. Imagine this. You send a message, no reply. You like their post, nothing back. You try to get a reaction, anger, sadness, anything. But all you get is stillness, not cold, just distant, detached, indifferent. That's not just silence, that's a mirror. Because when someone gives you nothing, no explanation, no emotion, no energy, you're left alone with yourself. And most people can't handle that. That's where the spiral begins. They start wondering, did I ever matter? Why aren't they reacting? Were they pretending the whole time? Did they move on already? Did I even hurt them? And that, right there, is the beauty and brutality of psychological silence. You didn't attack them. You didn't block them in rage. You didn't type a 3-page message explaining your pain. You just withdrew, calmly, quietly, without a scene. And here's the kicker. In that silence, they start writing the story for you. Their imagination goes wild, their guilt gets loud, their ego gets bruised. Because they expected closure, they expected tears, anger, maybe even a little begging. But instead, they got nothing. That nothing, it echoes louder than any message you could have sent. Most people are addicted to reaction. They need your emotions to feel in control. So when you give them none, they lose their footing. They feel irrelevant. And that's the part that burns, not the breakup, not the distance, but the realization that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have the impact they thought they did. Let me tell you something brutally honest. Emotional invisibility is the ultimate power move. You don't ghost them to hurt them. You don't stay quiet out of spite. You just step back because you've realized something. They don't deserve front row seats to your emotions anymore. Your silence isn't revenge, it's revelation. It shows them a version of you they never thought existed, a version that's not dependent on their attention, not begging for closure, not needing them to understand your worth. It's the version of you that finally stopped performing. But I won't lie to you, it's not easy. Choosing silence over reaction will feel like walking away from a fire you used to live in. You'll feel the pull to break the quiet. You'll want to say something, anything, just to remind them that you once cared. But the more you sit in that silence, the more power you gain. You didn't say a word, but they heard everything. They heard you say, "You no longer have access to my emotions. I don't need to explain myself to you. My peace costs more than your closure." And deep down, they know it. Because silence doesn't just end a conversation, it rewrites the entire dynamic. It shows you're not playing the same game anymore. You're not trying to win them back. You're not trying to prove your point. You're not waiting around for validation. You're gone, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And that absence, it screams. So when they sit with your silence, let them feel what it's like to be on the outside of your world, looking in. Let them wonder, let them guess, let them project. Because your silence isn't rejection out of anger, it's rejection out of growth. It says, I no longer need to be understood by someone who misunderstood me from the start. So go ahead, my friends. Let your silence do the talking. And now I want you to show it. To yourself, to the people who thought they still had you, to the world watching your glow up. Drop this in the comments right now. I don't react. I rise. Let it be your declaration. Let it be your reminder. Let it be your armor. And stay with me, because up next, we're taking this even deeper. We're going to talk about the observer mindset, how to stop reacting and start rising. The power you're building, it's only just getting started. Number 4, the shift from reaction to observation. You don't find peace by avoiding chaos. You find it by refusing to let it control you. Let's talk about the shift. The moment everything starts to change. Not out there, but in here. In your mind. In your emotional center. In the way you move through the world without flinching, without explaining, without overreacting. Because here's the truth, my friends. Most people live in reaction mode. Someone doesn't text them back, they panic. Someone pulls away, they chase. Someone says something hurtful, they blow up. It's like their entire emotional system is hooked up to outside wires. Any little pull and boom, they're yanked out of their peace. But not you. Not anymore. You've shifted, and let me tell you, that shift, that's rare. That's power. You're no longer the person who reacts to every emotional jab, every breadcrumb, every piece of bait dangled in front of you. You've stepped into something stronger, something deeper. You've become the observer. Now don't get it twisted. Observation isn't weakness. It's not passivity. It's not letting things slide. No, observation is control. It's you choosing when to respond, how to respond, and sometimes choosing not to respond at all. Imagine a mountain during a storm. The winds howl, the lightning strikes, the rain comes down hard, but the mountain doesn't move. It just watches, unshaken, unbothered, unmoved. That's you now. You're the mountain. The storm can rage, but it no longer gets a reaction from you. Because the second you stop reacting, the second you stop letting their actions dictate your emotions, you become uncontrollable, and people don't know what to do with that. It throws them off. It makes them uneasy. Why? Because they expected the old you, the one who replied instantly, the one who always needed closure, the one who gave energy to every argument, every insult, every fake crisis. But now they get silence, they get pause, they get a version of you who watches and waits. That's terrifying to people who are used to controlling you with chaos. And let me be real, it's not easy at first. Shifting from reaction to observation feels weird. You'll catch yourself wanting to respond. You'll feel the itch to make it right, to defend yourself, to clap back. But every time you don't, every time you pause, every time you take a breath and let the storm pass, you're training yourself to rise above the noise. You're teaching your nervous system something it never learned before. We don't chase fires. We build fireproof peace. This is where your emotional strength is born, not in silence for silence's sake, but in stillness backed by intention. When you stop reacting, people start seeing their own reflection in your calm. And sometimes, what they see, it shakes them. Because your lack of reaction forces them to face their own behavior. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer emotionally available for drama. You're no longer handing out free passes to your attention. You're watching. You're aware. You're 10 steps ahead. And here's the kicker. When you become the observer, you take back your time, your energy, and your power. You stop letting other people set the tempo of your emotional world. You set the rhythm now. It's not that you don't care. It's that you finally care more about your peace than their performance. That's the shift. So let them rage, let them ghost, let them come and go, let them do what they do. But you sit back, you analyze, you move with precision, because you're no longer playing the game. You're watching the board from above it. And from up there, the view is so much clearer. Now, I want you to show yourself, show the world, show the version of you that used to react to everything. You've leveled up. Drop this in the comments. I observe, I don't react. Say it, write it, feel it. Let it become your new baseline. And don't go anywhere, because next, we're diving into the power of emotional control and how your calm becomes the thing they can't stop thinking about. Stay with me. The rise continues. Number 5. Emotional control is magnetic and unnerving. Emotional control isn't silence, it's strategy. And nothing's more powerful than someone who refuses to be shaken. Let's talk about something most people never see coming: emotional control. Not the fake kind, not the forced smile or the quiet panic behind unread messages. I'm talking about real control, calm, still, centered, unbothered. That kind of energy. It doesn't just attract people, it haunts them. Because when someone expects you to fall apart and instead you stay still, when they expect drama and instead get detachment, it messes with their entire perception of you. Wait, did they ever really care? Was I wrong about how much I meant to them? How are they so okay without me? That's when the doubt starts creeping in. And that doubt, that's the first crack in their illusion, the illusion that they held the power, that you needed them, that your emotions were theirs to trigger. They thought they could push your buttons, but the panel went dark. And now, they don't know what to do with that silence. Because emotional control isn't just attractive, it's unsettling. It's magnetic because it shows mastery. And mastery, my friends, is rare. Most people can't even hold themselves together during a minor disagreement. But you've trained yourself not to flinch when someone tries to get a rise out of you. They came expecting fire. Instead, you gave them ice. But here's the twist. Ice still burns. You didn't yell. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You just paused, breathed, moved on. And that calm, that composed silence, it says more than any outburst ever could. You became a mystery. And humans, we chase what we can't understand. They don't miss the version of you who sent long texts or stayed up all night wondering what went wrong. They miss the control they used to have over your emotions, the access they used to have to your energy. Now they're left watching your calm from a distance, trying to figure out how you got so unshakable. But emotional control doesn't mean you didn't feel it. It just means you mastered it. You processed it without a scene. You felt it without feeding it. You walked through the fire and didn't scream once. And that's rare. That's power. So next time they try to provoke you, bait you, test you, just smile internally and remember, they're used to people reacting. You're built different. Drop this in the comments right now. I am calm. I am power. Let the world see it. Let them see it. Your emotional control, it's not just for you. It's a signal. You're not someone they can shake anymore. You're someone they remember because they couldn't. And next, next is where it gets brutal. We're going to talk about how breaking patterns makes you unforgettable. Stick with me. Your power is only getting louder. Number 6. Breaking patterns when you don't respond like everyone else. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. Be the plot twist they never saw coming. Let's talk about something that flips the whole script: breaking patterns. Because most people, they live in emotional reruns. Same drama, same fights, same exits and entrances. It's like a recycled soap opera. Break up, argue, make up, repeat. Predictable, tiring, and sadly, expected. But then you come along and do something dangerous. You don't respond like everyone else. And just like that, you shatter the rhythm. You don't send the angry texts. You don't ask for closure. You don't post heartbreak quotes for attention. You don't engage in the dance. You step off the floor completely. And that, my friends, is terrifying to people who are used to controlling the tempo. See, emotional manipulators, people who crave reactions, who feed off attention, they rely on the loop. They know how it usually goes. They say something triggering, you react. They ghost you, you chase. They come back, you forgive. They mess up, you explain your worth. Again and again. That's the program, that's the game. But when you don't play, when you just disappear from the emotional equation without theatrics, they don't know how to process that. You've just broken their sense of control. You've become unpredictable. And in psychology, unpredictability is power. Why? Because people chase what they can't pin down. We're wired for patterns. When the pattern breaks, the brain panics. It replays, rewinds, obsessively reanalyzes. That's how you become unforgettable, not because you screamed, but because you didn't. Let me paint it for you. Imagine a chess game where someone always makes the same opening moves. They've won this way before. They're confident, but this time their opponent, you, opens with something they've never seen. No rage, no defense, just silence, calm, detachment. Now their whole strategy collapses because the game they trained for, you're not playing it anymore. And let me be honest, this isn't easy. Your old self will want to fall back into the pattern. You'll feel the urge to send the "just so you know" message, the "I deserve better" speech, the "I'm done" announcement. But stop. That's just part of the loop. They've seen it before. They expect it. What they don't expect? You evolving quietly. You breaking contact without ceremony. You moving on without making it a show. That kind of shift, it shakes them, because now they don't get the satisfaction of seeing your breakdown. They don't get to feel powerful by watching you plead, explain, or try. And if they do reach out again, you're no longer in the same emotional room. You've changed the locks. You've switched the rhythm. You're not Silence is a mirror, a clean, cold, unforgiving reflection. And when you hold that mirror up, people are forced to face something they've spent a lifetime avoiding, themselves. Because as long as you're reacting, yelling, explaining, trying to be understood, they don't have to look at their own actions. They can just focus on your emotions, your words, your reactions. But the moment you go still, the spotlight flips. Suddenly, it's not about what you're saying. It's about what they're starting to feel. And guilt is loud in quiet rooms. See, when you stop defending yourself, they start asking questions they never had to face before. Was I wrong? Did I go too far? Why are they so calm? And most haunting of all, did I lose someone who actually cared? Because your silence, my friends, it doesn't just say, I'm done. It says, I've evolved. It says, you no longer have the power to disturb my peace. And that gets under their skin more than any angry message ever could. The reason it hits so hard is simple. Guilt needs an audience. It needs someone to argue with, to push back, to trigger. But when you remove yourself, that guilt just sits there, alone, undeniable, amplified. They remember what they did. They remember what they said. And now, there's no distraction, just the replay. Every word, every look, every choice on loop. And here's the part they weren't ready for. Your silence doesn't scream, I'm hurt. It whispers, I'm healing without you. That's the line that breaks them, because they counted on your chaos to protect them from their own. They expected you to react, to chase, to argue, and when you didn't, they were left to wrestle with the one voice they can't ignore. Their own. They may not admit it. They may act unbothered. They may pretend they've moved on. But deep down, they're haunted by the version of you that walked away without a single emotional receipt. And here's the plot twist. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves that didn't feel guilty. That's the real echo in your silence. So let them feel it. Let the guilt stretch. Let the regret grow roots. Not out of spite, but because you're finally done watering dead gardens. You've stepped out of the courtroom. You don't need to prove your innocence when your peace is already the proof. And now, I want you to claim that energy, right here, right now. Drop this in the comments. My silence is their mirror. Say it with pride. Let it hit. Let it remind you who you've become. And don't go anywhere, because what's next? That's where your evolution becomes undeniable. We're talking about true transformation, not pretending to be over it, but actually outgrowing it. Stay with me. You're not done rising yet. Number 8. You're not cold, you've evolved. They'll say you've changed. Good. That means their version of you no longer exists. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them spin their version of the story. You're cold now. You don't care like you used to. You've changed. Damn right you have. Because you're not here to be who you were when they didn't respect you. You're not bending over backward to be understood by people who didn't even try to listen. You're not shrinking to make others feel comfortable. That version of you, the one who over-explained, overgave, overfelt, is gone. You didn't become cold, you evolved. They don't recognize you now because they were only familiar with your wounds, not your healing. They knew how to manipulate the old you. They knew how to trigger your insecurities, how to get a reaction, how to keep you in their loop. But this you, this new you, you're unreadable, calm, distant, but not out of spite, out of self-respect. You're not avoiding the storm anymore. You are the storm. You've stopped looking for validation in people who once overlooked you. You've stopped needing closure from people who never offered clarity. You've stopped waiting on apologies that would have never been sincere. And in doing that, you've become something unstoppable. That's what they didn't expect. They thought you'd break. They thought you'd beg. They thought your silence was temporary, just another part of the cycle. But here you are, silent, steady, unshakable. You don't flinch when they but only if they could still control you. Only if you stayed accessible, predictable, emotional. But now that you've become something they can't influence, they call it cold. Let them call it whatever helps them sleep at night. You're not here to fix their narrative. You're here and stay with me, because we're not done. What's coming next? Oh, it's not about silence anymore. It's about becoming irreplaceable. Stay close. We're taking it even higher. So friends, you're not silent because you're weak. You're silent because you've said everything that needed to be said, with your actions, your growth, and your unbothered energy. Let them wonder. Let them replay the past. Let them fill in the blanks with questions you'll never answer, because the moment you stopped responding, you became unforgettable. Like this video. Subscribe for more. Now, go be the calm that drives them crazy.